Welcome back to the Mental Path, and today we're talking about something I wish everyone thinks about. I'm Dr. Gretchen Guevara, and I blend medical science, psychology, and practical personal development tools to find clarity, confidence, and calm in my day to day life. And I want to share my mental health habits with you. You know that feeling when you're checking all the boxes, but life feels strangely flat? Maybe you're getting things done, showing up for work, and being present for your family, but something feels off, like you're an autopilot and the pilot's MIA. That's what we're focusing on today, flatline burnout, a sneaky form of burnout that doesn't announce itself with panic attacks. It quietly steals your spark while you keep functioning. You might be living it right now and not even realize it. A few years ago, I went through a brief period when I felt this way. I was still seeing patients, that one-on-one connection grounded me, but the projects I used to love, meh. Goals that I used to light me up, dimmed. Even small wins didn't feel like they were worth celebrating. It wasn't depression. This was different. It was like someone had turned the volume down on my emotions. I wasn't sad or anxious, just absent. Here's the thing. I still was productive, polite, functioning. So nobody noticed, not my family, not my colleagues, not even me at first. Inside, I felt like I was living in a grayscale world, going through the motions of a life that used to be so vibrant. That quiet drift worried me. At least with a breakdown, you know something's wrong. This made me feel like I was just boring now, unmotivated. Maybe this was just what mid-career adulting looked like. Well, we know it's not. This isn't about a single massive stressor. It builds from something I see all the time in my clinic. Accumulated misalignment, a slow erosion of what matters to you. So you're a high-functioning person. You adapt, you problem solve, but somewhere along the way, your daily grind stopped reflecting who you are or what you value, and your brain just checked out. It's not that you're melting down, you're numbing out. And the most confusing part, you look fine from the outside. When I'm working with someone experiencing this, I look at 3 areas. First, your body. You might notice you're exhausted even after tasks that used to feel manageable. Afternoon energy crashes feel hormonal and impossible to explain. Wired but tired at night, mind racing when you know you should sleep. Basically, your nervous system is running on fumes. Second, your mind. You know your goals, but you don't feel them. That internal fire, dimmed. Purpose feels distant. For me, this was strange because I'm usually crystal clear about goals, but I was suddenly questioning everything. Third, your environment. Stacked with invisible labor, the emotional, logistical, relational stuff that lands on your plate. You're performing well, so nobody's worried, but nobody, including you, has stopped to ask, does any of this align with who I am? In my own experience, it threw me off because it doesn't fit the typical burnout narrative. In my clinic, I tallied this up over the last 2 weeks. This pattern showed up as a significant factor in 90% of my patients. That's a lot of people walking around feeling disconnected from their own lives. What's happening in your brain is that chronic misalignment dampens your dopamine system, your internal fuel for motivation and pleasure. But it happens gradually, so you adapt to running on empty. Psychiatrically, it can mimic low-grade depression, but doesn't always meet clinical criteria. Psychologically, when your outer life doesn't mirror your inner values, your emotional engagement fades, even when you're crushing your to-do list. That's why this is so sneaky. It's not a crisis, but your system is quietly struggling. Living an island life has honestly been one of the greatest teachers about this. There's something about island time that forces you to confront the pace you're keeping, especially when I'm spending time in nature away from the urgency of rounding in the hospital. Whenever I transition between hospital work and rest, I notice that when I fight against that slower pace, I feel more drained. When I started to sync with it, not giving up my ambition or goals, but just really slowing down a bit and being more present, I had more energy for what actually matters. It made me realize that so much of flatline burnout comes from this constant low-level resistance to our natural rhythms. We're trying to force productivity when our bodies are asking for rest. We're pushing through when our brains are saying, pause. Your emotional cycles aren't flaws, they're feedback from your nervous system, from your physical body. Your rhythms are natural. Let's stop apologizing for having them. Notice the pattern, name it, then choose what you need. Let me paint you a picture of what this could look like in real life because I see it every single day. You could be a successful leader at work with smart, kind kids, loving partner, and a beautiful home. On paper, you're winning, but you might feel like you're watching your life through a glass. You're there, but not really there. Maybe you can't even remember the last time you felt excited about anything outside of work. Even victories feel hollow. Just a reminder, if you're my patient in real life, I am not referring to you specifically. This hypothetical story is more common than you think. This isn't a person who needs to be told to work harder or manage their time better. They're already a master at both. What they need is permission to question whether their impressive looking life actually fits who they are. Here's what I've noticed too. High achievers are often the last to recognize flatline burnout because we're so good at performing competently. We can function at 60% capacity and still outperform most people. But the remaining 40%, that's where our joy lives, our creativity, our sense of aliveness. And when that's missing, everything feels fine, just fine. And fine is exhausting when you know you're capable of more. This is where my psychiatrist brain gets really interested. What's actually happening when you're stuck in fine? Your brain has this incredible system called the reward pathway. It's supposed to light up when you do things that align with your values, when you make progress toward meaningful goals, when you connect with people who matter to you. But when you're living in chronic misalignment, when your days are full of should-dos instead of wanna-dos, that reward system starts to dim. Not broken, just dimmed. It's like having a smartphone that's constantly running background apps you don't need. The battery drains faster, everything runs slower, and you can't figure out why because nothing looks obviously wrong. Your brain starts conserving energy for survival mode instead of thriving mode. And in survival mode, you don't get excited about possibilities. You just get through the day. The good news is, this system is incredibly responsive and trainable thanks to neuroplasticity. Small changes in alignment can brighten those pathways again, but you have to be intentional about it. Here's what I want you to try this week, and it's actually pretty simple. Each day, just notice one moment when your energy dips, emotional and physical. When does that feeling hit? Write down 3 things: the time, what was happening around you, and what you were thinking or trying not to think about at that moment. Don't try to fix anything yet, just notice. Because once you start seeing the patterns, you can start making different choices. This week, I want you to also try something that might feel a little uncomfortable. Say no to one thing, not just because you're swamped, but because it doesn't truly align with who you're trying to become. Before automatically saying yes to the next request, pause and ask yourself, is this moving me toward the life I actually want? Or am I just keeping the machine running? Am I people pleasing? Still be smart about it, right? If there are things that need to be done, of course you have to say yes. Like, for me, writing my clinical notes, even if that's not my favorite thing to do. There are other strategies for this when we actually have to complete tasks that we don't want to do, but they're tied to other things that we enjoy doing. For me, that's taking care of my patients. When you maintain boundaries like this, you're not rejecting people. You're reclaiming your energy for what matters. If this is hitting home, if you're realizing you've been living in this quiet version of burnout, here's what I know for sure. This doesn't have to be permanent. I'm working on something specifically for high-functioning people who don't need another self-care checklist, okay? We need mental health systems that work upstream before we hit the wall. Speaking of upstream, next week, we're diving into something that might be stealing your mental energy without you even realizing it. Ever notice how choosing what to have for dinner can feel impossibly hard some days? Or how by 3 p.m., even tiny decisions feel overwhelming? That's decision fatigue, and it's quietly draining high performers everywhere. We'll talk about that next week. Remember, flatline burnout doesn't mean you're weak. It means your brain is exhausted from adapting, to a lifestyle that doesn't honor who you actually are. But now you see it. And once you see it, you can start shifting it. You don't have to wait for a crisis to change things, remember that. Small, aligned shifts can bring back the feeling of aliveness you've been missing. Try that energy tracking this week. If you have an aha moment, I'd genuinely love to hear about it. Find me on YouTube or Instagram and share what you discover. And if this episode resonated, again, share it with someone else who might be struggling quietly. Sometimes we need permission to admit that fine isn't actually fine. We're done pretending. It's time to actually feel okay. This is Dr. Gretchen, and I'll see you next time on The Mental Path.